Today I'm here with David Havlick, Professor of Geography and Environmental Studies. David, thanks for being here with us today. So I'll start by having you tell our viewers your primary area of research.
Okay. So geography is a very broad discipline, and in geography I position myself in the human side more than the physical side, so I'm broadly considered a human geographer, and my research interests focus on critical military geographies, human-environment relationships, particularly as they pertain to conservation and public lands, and then environmental politics, and related to ecological restoration as well. In terms of I have an affiliation with the Trauma Health and Hazard Center here at UCCS as well, and I think that's primarily because I have a project looking at how public lands can serve as therapeutic landscapes for trauma survivors, particularly veterans populations. So, and that's a collaborative project with the U.S. Forest Service. I have a grant with them where we're in part trying to figure out how national forests in the U.S. can provide opportunities for nature-based therapeutic programs.
Okay, cool. So I know you just talked a little bit about this, but what are some of your current projects or research?
So that's one, the Therapeutic Landscapes Project is one that's ongoing. We've been have two collaborators with the Forest Service in Seattle, and we've been interviewing a whole variety of kind of stakeholders in that project. So agency officials in Washington, D.C., the various managers of the long-distance trails in the U.S., like the Appalachian Trail, the Florida Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, the long scenic national trails. Some of the providers who offer programs for veterans, these nature-based therapeutic programs. People have been on the programs, including veterans and counselors who work with those programs. So trying to get kind of a broad array of perspectives on what these programs offer, what kinds of programs exist. It's kind of a typology of what these programs are. There's lots of different activities that they provide, whether it's kind of ranging from veterans and counselors who work with those programs. So trying to get kind of a broad array of perspectives on what these programs offer, what kinds of programs exist. It's kind of a typology of what these programs are. There's lots of different activities that they provide, whether it's kind of ranging from river rafting and rock climbing to 6-month through hikes on the Appalachian Trail, to hiking to a mountain hut and just having a time for reflection and kind of guided readings. Some are more kind of challenge oriented and kind of tests of endurance and sort of fitness for veterans. So whole range that we're trying to kind of characterize what they do, how they choose the landscapes that they go to, whether that's just kind of opportunistic, they happen to be right there, or whether they seek out public lands. Some veterans we've talked to have expressed kind of the importance of having access to federal lands that they feel that they helped serve or helped defend kind of the availability of those lands. So there seems to be some circularity or some connections between public lands and the veterans who have fought and served our country. So that's been some interesting findings there. That's one project. I'm doing other projects that don't relate so much to trauma. So I have a project looking at conceptions of wild and native trout in the western United States. And then another one that's been kind of ongoing for some time, looking at how militarized landscapes transition to become repurposed to conservation uses. So those are kind of my three main research areas right now.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so we can wrap up this interview by talking about research you would like to get done in the future.
I'd like to do a couple things. With the Therapeutic Landscapes Project, we're really primarily engaging with the literature and these kind of qualitative questions about the programs and why they offer what they do and where they go. I think we have some interest in seeing if there's a way to do kind of more empirical work just to evaluate qualitative questions about the programs and why they offer what they do and where they go. I think we have some interest in seeing if there's a way to do kind of more empirical work just to evaluate the actual outcomes that veterans and trauma survivors experience from doing these nature-based therapies. So there's been a little bit of work on that, but it's not yet what's considered by the VA, for instance, to be evidence-based treatment. So there's a lot of kind of anecdotal evidence and kind of, direct stories from people who do these programs that they really help, but it hasn't been quantified or measured in a way that makes it as robust as I think it could be. So that's one interest going forward. This trout project is really just starting, so I'm curious to see where that could go. And there's a local watershed right here that's a big player in that, because it's it was the only stream that has provided habitat for our state fish, the Colorado greenback cutthroat trout. So that's of interest. And I'd actually like to see if there's ways to connect that more internationally. So places like Hokkaido and Japan have some interesting relationships between the people there and trout. So I think kind of examining more thoroughly the human-environment relationship through the lens of trout would be one interesting kind of ongoing project that I'm curious about. And then I still feel like that I've been working on the kind of military to wildlife transitions for some time, but there's still a lot of international sites that I'm curious about there. So in Central Europe and East Asia, that I think would be worth pursuing further.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds really interesting, actually. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time today, David. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of your future research.
All right, thank you.